From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode 486. Today's show is brought to you by Notion, Squarespace, and Ecamm. I'm one of your co-hosts, Federico Vitici, and it's my pleasure to introduce to the show Mr. Stephen Hackett. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Federico. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, thank you.
Good. And I have the pleasure of being joined by Mr. Mike Hurley.
Boy, howdy. It's me, in the flesh.
In the flesh, well, in the Zoom flesh, I guess.
Well, I'm in
yes.
flesh, you know.
Okay.
I can't speak for what you're experiencing. Stephen, would you like to start the show with some follow-up?
Stop
it. No.
Okay.
It's banished.
The
sent that off to the
pro-hum
banished land.
people were still writing in. I am pro-hum, I just want to say on the record.
That's good. Yep.
You're a hum-througher, I guess.
Yes. Yes. And until we get Mike on board, our friend, really, I think everyone's friend, Rob Knight, has made a website called Humanize. Humanize?
It's Humanize. That's
Humanize?
what we called it. Humanizing. See, this is the thing. You say you're pro-hum, but you don't remember anything about it. You know?
I remember the good times we had before you took it away.
Yeah.
Like I'm imagining Stephen remember the good times, like a slow-mo sort of flashback montage of us harmonizing.
Well, it would be like one of those songs, like, you know, do you remember? But it's the whole thing is hummed,
and it's us humming in front of a microphone.
That's the whole thing.
For some reason, Mike is running in slow motion.
Yeah,
in this
I'm
flashback,
humming in slow motion.
Rob has made a website where you can relive the glory days. You can click on us, you can click on a bell, you can have it do it automatically. It's amazing.
Sometimes bits, they have to go to the bit farm in the sky, you know? Like you gotta, before they get too old and tired, you just gotta retire them. And that's what we're doing with harmonizing. It's...
I don't mean to give you more work, Rob, but this website should really have an API that you can use from shortcuts. It returns a success audio file that is a hum, and you can use it as a success sound in your shortcuts. That is my pitch. Like,
all right, I'm making it an issue in his GitHub repo right now.
This is really good of you to do that to him.
Yes, you're welcome,
really
Rob.
Good.
Okay, that is issue number 1 in the GitHub page for this. It's amazing.
While we're talking about bits that may have run their course, Brad wrote in to say, I have a follow-up on Frederico's Christmas tree farm.
Are you canceling Christmas?
No, don't ruin this for me. No.
I said it hadn't. I said may have. You know?
But no, you're setting it up. You're setting it up.
I'm out here and I'm trying to protect the hilarity of the show. You know, like someone's got to do it. Someone's got to be the bad guy, and I'm willing to be the bad guy.
Yeah, you're the Grinch in this scenario.
Yeah, I will be the Grinch of bits, and like someone's got to prune them. And I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm just saying like I'm willing to. I will take that. You know, I'll be that guy. Anyway. Barbara said, I have a follow-up on Frederico's Christmas tree farm that you mentioned during the holiday season. It seems that his business empire may be larger than we all realized. I live in Chicago and noticed one of Frederico's family businesses. Or is it Federico or Frederico?
Frederico.
It's Frederico, right?
Thank you, Brad, for spelling it correctly.
No. You spell it like that, but I'm pretty sure it's Frederico's Christmas tree.
It is Frederico's.
Like that was the whole point. Yeah, all right. I live in Chicago and noticed another one of Frederico's family businesses. And while it's a bit more grim than Christmas trees, I won't spoil it, but I promise it's safe for work. Now, there's an image that we haven't looked at.
Before we click,
100% confident that I know what it is.
Before we click, any guesses?
It's I've not looked. All right, I've kept the sanctity of the show notes. I'm convinced that it is a funeral parlor.
I was also going to say a funeral home. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Stephen, what do you think?
I'll go with y'all. I mean,
all
the
right,
grim. The grim. I think it's in.
I'm clicking.
Yep, okay. 100% right. Well, this is a different thing.
Oh,
it's called
no.
Vitucci Funeral Home, which is a different thing.
No, that is not my
Completely.
name.
Honestly, this is not even tangentially related to the Christmas tree farm.
That is not my name.
Hang on. No. Hang on. Go to the third photo.
Third photo.
The building next to it just says carefully.
Carefully?
In all capital letters.
Because if you're not careful, you'll end up next door.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's for when you want to pass away carefully,
Mhm.
just, do it gently.
Do it gently.
Do it gently, carefully, nice and gently. I want to just state for the record right now, this is not going to become a recurring piece of follow-up where people just, we can't just have every store that's kind of like Federico's name and we talk about it, right?
Yeah.
We're all in agreement on this one?
Yes, we
Brad,
are.
I appreciate
Also,
what you did.
Vitucci is a very common misspelling, even here in Italy, of my last name.
Yeah, I
just
can
because
see that.
Vitici is so uncommon. I think I've said it before. I think I'm the only Vitici in Italy. But Vitucci is a very popular last name, but it's not me.
So Vitici is like a weird one? Like that's not
Yes.
something that... Okay.
People never understand my last name on the phone. They're like, "Oh, Vitucci?" No, Vitici with the e with the
Did you
I,
say
I mean.
Federico Vitucci? Yep, nailed it in one.
Okay, well,
Chris wrote in about video reactions to say, I think a fix that Apple could make is something like what Zoom has. Zoom has similar functionality, but in the lower corner it puts up a small emoji of the reaction that it's about to do with a timer to know how long until the effect fires. This allows you to have a warning to either cancel or stop the action before it shows on camera. My initial thought is like, this is just worse in a different way, right? Like, if I do a thumbs up and then it's like 5 seconds later the thumbs up appears, it kind of loses its...
You're introducing latency to the gestures.
I mean, there already is one, which I think is for the best, right? Like, that you have to like hold it for a second and then it will do the thing. But I'm not sure that this is better. It's just different,
Yeah.
They should just have it off by default. I mean, that's the simple thing here. It causes nothing but trouble, I think.
No, it doesn't cause nothing but trouble.
It causes a lot of trouble.
Delight. It causes delight. Lots of things cause trouble, Sometimes delight.
I did want to bring people's attention to the support article for these video effects.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One, there are more than I thought there were.
Yes.
But two, there were like these hand-drawn images of hands, and I can't tell if I like them or they creep me out.
Let me see this.
Some are way more detailed than others, which is interesting. Right?
None of them have fingernails, which is upsetting.
Would you want that?
I don't know.
In this image, I feel like that would be creepy.
Interesting wish that you were looking for the fingernails.
Man, I wish there was some fingernails.
You know what?
If
This
only.
drawing is missing. Give me some fingernails, man.
I get that. So, Stephen, do you prefer like patent hands to these?
Patent hands are also bad. And I just remembered as we were talking the nightmare that is the hand sticker pack from Apple that was a big deal in the early versions of watchOS, and it was kind of been like demoted over time.
They were like in a glove, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, that hand always reminded me of Mike. Do you remember the original, like in Super Smash Brothers, like the hand that was like the final boss?
Yes.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. I haven't thought about that hand in forever. So thank you, Steven.
Chris Lawley wrote in, requested follow-up on the iPad mini mounted to the Magic Keyboard. This was a riff on Federico's iPad mount with the phone. And we discovered that Chris is using two iPads at once. Chris is using two rolling square mounts. He says these magnets are incredibly strong, so the iPad mini isn't going anywhere.
Yeah,
when I'm using... Such a ridiculous sentence. When I'm using two iPads together, the iPad mini typically has a document or something I'm just referencing. As long as I'm not aggressively tapping on the mini, nothing falls over. If I'm working on an uneven surface like my lap, the iPad does want to fall over. P.S. I do have long thighs.
Thank you, Chris, for the clarification.
I feel like Chris attempted to explain why it was okay and just confirmed to me why it isn't, in my opinion.
Realized halfway through that it wasn't.
As long as I'm not aggressively tapping, and also I must have a perfectly even surface. Like, Chris, you look... just like fly into the sky. I love you doing what you do. Same as Federico. Like, I love you guys just pushing it as far as you can. But like, we all know that is suboptimal, right? That like, don't tap too hard or everything falls over.
What if
I want you to do it.
Really
I want you to
upsets
live your best lives and do these things,
Yeah. I think we are but
you are.
Chris is like, this is the evolution of my setup. Like, this is the next step. Chris is the war turtle to my squirrel, if you will.
What I love that. What I
Mhm.
enjoy is the thought of the two of you eventually putting magnets on your Vision Pros and just putting a Mac Mini up there, right? Just to be like,
Ooh.
so I could wherever I go, I'm gonna have the Mac like just ready to go. So you just stick a Mac Mini on the front of the thing, and you just like
I had a thought the other day about like connecting multiple batteries to the Vision Pro and attaching all of them to myself. So like if I'm using the Vision Pro and I have the Belkin battery clip and there's the Vision Pro battery, but the Vision Pro battery has USB-C in. So what if I attach another battery to the battery and I get a second holster for all of them? Like I'm gonna look like
you'd be like Batman.
yeah. I'm gonna be like the Vision Pro soldier or something, like with all these holsters going on at the same time, so I never run out of charge.
Or Chewbacca.
Yeah,
You don't know who that is, do you?
it's the hairy bear from Star Wars.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Notion. There is no shortage of helpful AI tools out there, but using them means switching back and forth between yet another digital tool. So instead of simplifying your workflow, it just becomes more complicated, unless, of course, you're in Notion. I've been using Notion to manage Mac Power users for a while now, and I love having everything in one place. We have all these databases, they interlink with each other, I can search really easily, and with Notion AI, I can find stuff through like 10 years of show notes. We have so much history on MPU, and Notion AI makes it really easy to make those connections when I'm looking to see if we've talked about something before, if we've linked to something before. Notion combines your notes, documents, and projects into one space that's simple and beautifully designed. You can save time and write faster by letting Notion AI handle the first draft, jumpstart a brainstorm, or just turn your messy notes into something polished. You can even automate tedious tasks like summarizing meeting notes or finding next steps. Notion AI does all of this and more, freeing you up to do the deeper work. And the fully integrated Notion AI helps you work faster, write better, and think bigger, doing tasks that normally take you hours in just seconds. Notion is used by over half of all Fortune 500 companies, and I think more than half the companies that we represent here on this podcast. Teams that use Notion send less email, cancel more meetings, save time searching for their work, and reduce spending on tools, which helps keep everyone on the same page. Try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/connected. That's all lowercase, Notion, Notion, notion.com/connected to try the powerful, easy-to-use Notion AI today. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show. Our thanks to Notion for their support of Connected and Relay FM.
We are less than 10 days away from the Vision Pro. It's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited now. Like, it's so close.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's been a really long time, right? Like, if you think back to June of last year, like, this is a very long time that we've known this thing was coming. We're excited for it. Now we know exactly when it's coming. Are we all getting one? Were we successful?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with an asterisk, I guess.
Let's start with asterisk, boy.
So I was successful. The entire plan that I had devised worked. So I was able to use my burner phone logged into a secondary John Voorhees account with a John Voorhees credit card. I was able to use all of that to put in an order. I scanned my face, which in hindsight was unnecessary because it turns out that John and I, we share the same head
Face.
size, I guess. But yeah, I was able to put in the order. I uploaded my prescription using the website that I suggested to Mike. A bunch of people emailed me to ask me for that website. So you're welcome. GoVisibly.com. I sent you a bunch of people over the past week. And everything was successful. And the Vision Pro, let's check again. It was preparing to ship yesterday, and it's still preparing to ship. So I was successful. Obviously, now this entire story for me is predicated upon the assumption that everything will be fine with shipping and customs. I mean, let's face it, I'm ready to spend another $1,000 to import this product in Italy right now at launch. And I know that's going to happen. I planned for it. I saved for it. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, everything will go well at Italian customs. They will know what they're dealing with. And if they don't, they'll call me on the phone, I suppose.
What are our face shield sizes? Let's compare sizes.
23W was that?
Is that with prescription?
Yeah.
So I found out that you have a different size if you have prescription lenses and non-prescription lenses. In a non-prescription, I'm 21W. With prescription, I'm 25W.
Okay, so I put in during the order that I needed prescription lenses, and it gave me 23W.
Okay,
same.
And John also put in prescription, and he also got the same number.
So I have the biggest head.
You
is
do.
what we've learned. Yeah,
it's because you're so intelligent.
Maybe we knew that already. I don't know.
That's why the tiny shirts had failed, because it wasn't very realistic.
It wasn't true.
Yeah.
I should have had the biggest head. Maybe I do. I haven't measured.
Or we should have taken you off the shirt and just been me and Federico. Think about that.
I mean, there was a time period where it felt like that was happening to me. That the two of you had decided that shirt was going to be a thing that you were in charge of and nobody else. My ordering process was a bit chaotic, I think is fair to say. So obviously I was doing an in-store pickup as my option. And I first started going through the process, and it asked me if I needed contact lenses and stuff like that. And when I started asking if I needed lenses, and I started answering the questions, and I don't know what I answered, but it was like, you can't buy the Vision Pro. And I was like, all right, I'm going to deal with this part later on. So I just went through and placed an order. But the actual placing of the order was very difficult. Like, my card kept getting declined. The payment was being declined. I was using Apple Pay. So I go through the whole thing, choose my slot, go for it, and it was decline. And my wife was trying to buy one too for me, right? So we're both we're tag teaming this situation. And she then tried a different card in case it was my card that was the issue. And she was able to place an order for the 3rd. But it was not on the card that I wanted to use. And then I kept trying out, and then I was able to place an order for 11 p.m. on the 2nd. So I actually have 2 Vision Pro orders. I'm going to cancel one of them, naturally. But I think the situation I was finding, it wasn't my card wasn't the issue, but the slots kept filling up.
I had that problem too, where in the Apple Store app, the fail state was really bad because basically it looked like your payment failed, but it wasn't. It was that your in-store pickup time got taken by somebody else out from under you. They should have done a couple of things differently. The error message should have been actually useful instead of scary.
Yes, because it just said payment failed, which isn't. Yeah,
it's not actually true. But also they should do it if you buy tickets to a concert or a sporting event. But I know Ticketmaster does this. A lot of other websites do this too. You have a set amount of time where those tickets are in your cart, and then you have to start over. Do the same thing with the in-store pickup time. It's okay, I've picked 9:30 or whatever. Mark that as unavailable to everybody else for a set amount of time while I'm checking out, and tell me how much time I have. Other people have solved this problem, but Apple seemed to be befuddled by it.
Especially because it seems like something like that was going on, because then later in the day, I was able to change my pickup time to 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's which is great, because now I've got it exactly when I want it, right? As soon as I possibly can on launch day is what I want. And so it's oh, okay. But I didn't really, it was a bit of a madness. And then also I then went through and ordered my prescription lenses separately. I'm happy I did that too, because it seems like prescription could only be sent to an address. You can't pick it up. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sending my prescription to Steven, and then he's going to mail it to me.
Big vision, buddy.
Indeed. So I'll be able to use it on day one without prescription, which I think will be fine for me. It's not going to be a big deal anyway. Like things might be a little blurry, but I'll be okay. And then a couple of days later or whatever, I'll have my the like the actual lenses to put in. So bit wild. I also found out. Well, Stephen found this out for me. To which, when I originally read it, I thought it was game over, but I actually think it probably isn't now. There is an FAQ section on the ordering page, and one of them is like, if you are an international customer who wants to buy one, what's going to happen to you? And the main thing is that it says that the App Store requires an Apple ID with the region set to the US. So it seems to indicate to me that I will be able to sign in with my main Apple ID, but if I want to buy anything, I need an US Apple ID. And so I have gone through the many weird hoops that you need to jump through to get one. Like ultimately you have to have, before people ask me, because I know people will ask me, ultimately you have to have some form of American payment attached to the account. Like luckily I have access to that. And then also bought a gift card and topped it up with a gift card, and I'm not going to charge the account, Stephen, don't worry. But this seems to be the only way to do it. So I think I'm going to be set, but we'll see what happens.
Mine was far less dramatic because I'm in the United States, the world's best country, according to Apple. So I have in-store pickup for the morning of February 2nd. I think it's at 9:30 in the morning. So I'm not the first slot, but I think I'm the second. And I did pick up the hard travel case. I don't necessarily anticipate traveling with it, at least at first, but I do want something to store it in that's safe and sound because repairing this thing is going to be expensive.
Very
expensive.
Impossible.
Or impossible if you don't live in the United States.
Or very, very expensive.
Yeah, you have to ship it to me, and then I take it to Apple and pay the $3,000 to get it fixed.
Oh my God.
So we'll all be in possession of them at some point, early February. That's very exciting because it was really unknown that if we'd be able to pull this off or not. Yeah. And I'm pleased that we have because I'm just so curious about where the three of us are going to fall along of the spectrum of feelings about this product. I can't wait.
It's impossible to know, genuinely impossible to know at this point, right? Like me and Federico had one 30-minute demo, but I don't know that doesn't really tell us anything about how it's going to feel to use it. Where like realistically, for the first few days, we're going to be using it more than we probably should.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like I plan to put it on, and I'll probably be doing like 4 or 5 hours a day in this thing for the first few days, right? To like really try and cram in as much as possible. And I genuinely have no idea how that's going to feel. Like I don't think it's going to feel good, but I don't know if it's going to feel bad. Like I think that's I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I will say about that demo, Apple posted a guided tour video when the pre-orders went up. In case you were wondering, this is very similar to the experience that Federico and I got to try. Like, honestly, down to some of the same words being used.
Yes.
Not exactly the same because they actually have some apps they can show now, which they didn't have before. But there was a lot of very close parts to it. And also, I will say, that persona looked better than the persona I saw. So if you thought that persona looked bad, whoa, baby.
I'm so afraid of it.
Imagine what Mike saw. Yeah.
No hair and eyes moving in the wrong direction. It was great. It was really good times.
Did y'all see the construction video?
There are lots of things I want in my life, right? And I've asked for lots of things in my life. I've been lucky to get them. I want to go to the place where Apple makes anything and just see this. It's incredible.
It is really cool. It's sort of similar to their videos like the Intel iMac, which that video was ripped off from the Postal Service, or the Mac Pro assembled in the USA video, right?
Have you guys ever seen the oddly satisfying subreddit?
Of course.
And it's like all Yeah. So Apple should make a bunch of videos of their making of things and just use them for like meditation purposes. I would watch 30 minutes of Apple machines assembling computers and like just chill,
Especially the part, like I'm rewatching it now, where I think they're like sewing the headband and it's just all these little needles moving backwards and forwards. Like just the amount of processes required is truly outstanding to me. And like when I mean, I don't know what it's like to build an iPhone, right? Like I don't know how many processes an iPhone goes through. But when you see this video, I feel like you can't be surprised that it costs $3,500.
I had that exact thought. I was like, oh,
look
that's
how
where all that money goes.
this is. Like, especially the part where they're getting ready to put the front glass on and you see all the electronics inside of it. It's truly outstanding. Like, I really feel like more than ever, we're about to be on the absolute cutting edge. Like, we're going to be using something which is just like as far into the future a piece of consumer technology can be and sold en masse. Like it truly feels like a special thing, and I'm very excited.
Me too.
Which I'll say on the en masse thing. So, I mean, we don't know, but I will say overall, they stayed in stock more than I expected. But there's been reporting that they sold like maybe 160 to 180,000, which is also more than I thought they would sell. So I have no idea, right? Like I don't know what you guys think about that, but
I mean, I don't know what that means. Like, there's no context for this. We know that there were reports that Apple could maybe only make 500,000 or 1 million of these due to the screen technology. I would imagine that just if watching this video is any indication, this is a very complicated thing to build. And they've got all these components and like yield issues, all that stuff could be a factor. So like, I don't know what that number means. I would also imagine, even though dates have slipped in the US, that if they are planning on this being beyond the United States in the next couple of months, maybe they are like, is there any gating going on where they've got more stock than they're putting for sale? I don't know any of those answers. So I don't really know what that number means, but other than there's not a lot of them. Like subjectively, we don't know what the number means, but objectively, no, that's actually not a very big number of units. And so it'll be a rare thing for a long time.
While I want my country people to be able to access this thing, I would like at least 60 days. Please, just give me 60 days to justify what I'm doing. That's my ask. It's purely selfish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those probably got to be what, like a couple dozen in the United Kingdom, you think?
It's hard to know. I mean, it will be a very small number, right? Because the efforts that you have to go to are pretty intense. I mean, I don't know what the aftermarket is really going to be like for this product. Like, I know that there already is one. In fact, there was one before it even went on sale, which is hilarious. But it also just seems like a complicated product to buy aftermarket if you know anything about it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You've kind of got to go through the whole face thing, which was smoother than I expected. The face scanning thing, it was very simple. I genuinely have no idea how they get enough information from it. So I just think that's very technologically impressive. But yeah, I don't imagine there will be a lot of them outside of America.
Do you guys think I will be the only person in Rome with a Vision Pro?
It's possible. It's possible.
Maybe I
feel
should
like
do
the
something
further
about
you
that.
get, the least likely it becomes, right?
Should like put up a small tent somewhere and have people pay a ticket to try one.
Big vision, buddy.
Yeah.
You're gonna want some wet wipes or something. Keep that thing clean.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want some head sanitizer.
Yep. Just the whole thing. Bucket, dip the head in.
Yeah.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Like a swirly in a bunch of sanitizer.
Yeah, exactly. So the Vision Pro is looking forward, but today we can also look backwards as the Mac has turned 40 years old. There are lots and lots of good pieces of content out there on the internet. I'm pretty proud of an episode of Upgrade that we put together that went out on Monday that Stephen was a guest on. We brought together a bunch of people who've been talking and thinking about the Mac for a really long time, and we did a draft. So picking some favorite moments and products over the last 40 years. So I'd really recommend people go check that episode of Upgrade out. There's also a really good video version of it too, if that's your speed. Jason wrote a good article on The Verge. Again, I love how they bring Jason in, like when there's an anniversary. I find that very funny. And Stephen has done a really good job of pulling together a bunch of resources and articles and stuff like that. So people can go and check it out. Happy birthday, Macintosh.
Happy birthday, Macintosh.
Happy birthday.
I did just want to call out one thing out of all this coverage, because you guys only allowed me a few minutes for this. I wanted the whole show.
This is absolutely a lie. This is a lie. You're lying.
But this conversation never happened.
But our friend Joe over at Mac Rumors came across the original press release for like the original Macintosh. And I read the whole thing, go read it. There's a quote in it that jumped out at me like I've rarely had covering this stuff. So this is a quote from Jobs. With Macintosh, the computer is an aid to spontaneity and originality, not an obstacle. It allows ideas and relationships to be viewed in new ways. Macintosh enhances not just productivity, but also creativity. And what killed me about that quote is how dead on it was then and how it continues to be dead on now. And not just about the Mac, right? I think Apple works in this way towards all of its products, but for a statement that's 40 years old to be still so relevant today, I mean, the rest of the press release is about like how it compares to the Lisa. Like, who cares? I do, funny. But most people don't. But this idea that the computer enhances productivity and creativity and is not an obstacle to doing so, like that's the whole reason I love the Mac. It's the whole reason I fell in love with it in high school, using it in my high school newspaper. And like how so many of us came to it was through creativity, even though it may not just be a creative tool for us now. It just really stunned me, like how forward-looking that statement was. And I'm sure no one at the time thought it would be, but it really stopped me in my tracks.
I think, I know you said that so many products continue to embody the spirit, and that is true, but I think 40 years on, even today, the Mac is still the best embodiment of that balance of anything that you can get for a computer. And there is a spectrum of a lot of these things. Like, so much more content creation is done on PC now than ever before. Like when you look at video games and stuff like that, right? Like a lot of that content is done on PC now. But the Mac is still a better tool for the majority of creativity.
Yeah.
And it's still incredibly capable from a productivity perspective. Like I don't really think that there is a blemish on it that way anymore. Where I would say that maybe like an iPad is more creative, but maybe harder to be productive. Not that you can't be, but that it's not as balanced. I think the Mac has the best balance of any computing device that you can buy today, and that's still 40 years later. And I think that is kind of incredible, but I also think is a thing that couldn't happen again because the economy has changed and what companies look for has changed. So the Mac was just at the right time, but its DNA means that it can continue to be what it always was and will continue to do that. I think, I would like to think about for like another 4 years. Like, I don't see why it wouldn't.
And I think what's unique about it is it allows that creativity to everyday people. Like you're right, a lot of stuff happens on the PC side now, but where the Mac has always been strong is taking those tools and making them accessible. So things like Mac Write and Mac Draw in the original days, like you couldn't do that on any computer hardly at all, let alone one. Yes, it was very expensive, but one that you could have on your desk theoretically. But then I think about in the more modern era, like the iLife suite, right? Like, or Photos, or even things maybe like iMovie and Final Cut, having these tools, like you can make really interesting dynamic things with the content out of your own life. And a lot of those tools just come in the box, right? That is where I think the Mac has always excelled for me when I think about it. Is it's a creative and productivity tool for everyone. And yes, you can go out and like get things that are more specific or more high end, but the Mac covers the basis for basically everybody and basically everything. And that's a real testament, I think, to what it was about in the early days, right? It was going to be a computer for the rest of us. And in so many ways, that is still true. This episode of Connected is brought to you by Squarespace. Say you want to build a website about your favorite computer, probably the Mac if you're listening to this show. Well, Squarespace is where you should build that website because they have all the tools you need to build a beautiful website to engage with your audience and to sell anything, products, services, and even content. With Squarespace, you have everything you need all in one place. You can make the most of Fluid Engine. This is Squarespace's next generation website design system to unlock your creativity more easily than ever before. Start with a best-in-class website template and customize every design detail with reimagined drag-and-drop technology for desktop or mobile. You can stretch your imagination online with Fluid Engine. It's built in and ready to go on any Squarespace site. And you can spin up a store to sell your products online, both physical and digital. They even have tools now to build out courses on Squarespace. All the tools you need are built in, and your customers get flexible payment options. So you can make checkout seamless for your customers with simple but powerful payment tools. You can accept credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay, and offer customers to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. I love building on Squarespace because all those tools are built in. I'm not going around trying to tape a bunch of stuff together hoping that it works. It's all integrated. It's all in one place. And some of the tools I haven't even mentioned, like the analytics, those are across the board. So you can see how your website's doing, where traffic's coming from. If you do their email newsletter stuff, you can see the analytics there as well. Again, all in one place. So if you have an old project that needs a breath of new life, you're starting something new, go check out Squarespace. Squarespace.com/connected is where you want to go for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code CONNECTED to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. That's squarespace.com/connected and the code CONNECTED when you decide to sign up to get 10% off your first purchase and to show your support for the show. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of Connected and all of Relay FM.
Big news in Stephen Hackett land. Would you like to share?
I'm launching Stephen++.
Congrats.
Finally.
You're already, it's a big IP theft already. That's great. That's really good.
Hackett Smith doesn't roll off the tongue. So I published a blog post yesterday. It'll be in the show notes. The TLDR is that I have joined David Smith's company and be working with him on apps like Widgetsmith, Pedometer++, Sleep++, and the others that he has. My role is like documentation, design, some customer-facing stuff, some marketing stuff. Some of that hopefully will be rolling out this week that I'll be able to share once it's ready. It is not changing anything I do here at Relay or on 512. Really, this is me kind of, in my mind, actually becoming more like, in thinking about this, I thought about the two of you a lot, where y'all really have sort of two big things that you're doing. And 512 Pixels has never been like, it's important to me and I will do it forever. But in terms of like the business, it's not a big contributor, and really wanting to be in a more stable position for the long haul. Thinking about what y'all have done with Cortex brand, with you, Mike, and of course, Federica, you have Mac Stories and your shows here and the club. And this is a move in that direction. David called me towards the end of the year and had been thinking about these things. He actually had an episode of Under the Radar that he was talking about this, and I was listening to it and I was like, oh yeah, he should totally bring somebody on to help him with that. And then he called me, which is kind of funny. I wanted to disclose it obviously because I am now, in addition to my commentary, I'm now also part of the like third party developer world. And that's I'm super excited about it. I couldn't ask for a better person to work with. And, but thought everybody should know.
Congratulations on your Mac Stories awards that you've won now. You've retroactively gotten those. So
where's my trophy, John?
Yeah, John. Come on, John. Where is the trophy? He deserves one. You only give one? That's not... Federico, are there multiple trophies available, or do you just give one per app?
Like, do we have like a storage of spare trophies? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, maybe. Like if there's two people that develop an app, right? Do you just send one trophy and they have to fight to the death for it?
You just saw it in half. Yeah.
Okay.
Stephen, I wouldn't recommend fighting _. He's
He's way stronger than I am.
Yeah, I think he could. I'm sorry, but he could take you.
Oh yeah, he could probably take all three of us at the same time. I mean, who are we kidding?
I agree with that. I feel like he would like, it would be an emotional struggle for him, right? Like he wouldn't enjoy it, but like if he had to, I mean, if the award is on the line, he would do it. Maybe, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'll find out. It's very funny now, where it's like he's not just our friend; he's also like your boss, and like so now I find even more delight in making these jokes.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yep. So, you're Lil Widgie now, right?
No, he's Big Widgie.
No, Dave is Big Widgie. You kidding me?
No, Steven's older. Steven's older. It's like
no, I think David's older than me.
No, he's not.
David, no one
David is like 32.
Yeah, he has actively reversed his age. Like that's
true.
the thing that Underscore has managed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're Elder Widgie.
Elder Widgie. That's good. That's very good. You're the Elden Widge. That's
that's a different thing.
The Elden Widge. I'm happy for you. I am. I think I might actually. I'm very happy for you. I might be happier for Underscore because he needs it. Like this is like a really good opportunity for you and like a fun thing to do. But Dave like needs this person, you know. And so like I'm very happy that he chose you because, again, because Underscore is maybe the best human. He wanted to have a call with me as well to explain to me that he's not stealing you away from me.
Yeah.
And something that Dave said is like that Stephen was like the person he wanted, and I can attest to this. I mean, I run a company with Stephen, and I know how good he is at these things. So like, you are like the perfect person to do it. But I know that Widget Smith is so big and so. I mean, I'm sure nobody has a better understanding of the scale now than the three of us, and you do, Stephen. Like Widget Smith is a absolutely massive business, and Underscore cannot do it on his own anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's too much, and having help is fantastic. And and I'm sure for him, like not just having someone who is good at it like you, but who understands all of it. Like I imagine that's like a really hard balance to try and find. So I'm really, really happy that this has happened, and I'm really excited for how uncomfortable we can make Stephen into the future. That's like
what Mike is saying, Stephen, is don't screw it up. You know?
Oh, I wasn't saying that, but I do mean that too. Now you say that, Federico, I agree. Yeah, Stephen, don't. I really like Widget Smith, so if you could just not screw it up, that would be awesome.
Don't mess it up. Okay, I will not listen to whoever in the Discord said make a Newton port of Widget Smith. We will not spend time on that.
Resource allocation is not part of your remit, I think. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe we're going to see some strange stuff. Like, we're going for the iMac theme, the 6-color iMac theme in this next version of Widget Smith. Oh, man.
So, yeah, wanted to share that news. It's important to me. I think it was more important to me than anyone else involved to disclose it. But I feel like I need,
Well, as you say, there's journalistic hand-wringing. So can I ask you some journalistic questions?
Yes.
Can we see if there's any ethics involved here? Like, do you imagine this is going to change you? Like, bias is a thing that people have. Like, it's just a thing that is inherent. And now, like, when we're talking about some of this stuff, you're going to feel different, right? Does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me. I'm curious how that's going to be. I mean, David and I talked a lot about this of like, it is going to change how I write and talk about things because I will have the experience of being in a company that does third-party development on Apple's platforms. And that's not an experience that I've had. It's also not an experience that many people who do what I do on the commentary side have. Like a few people have done apps, but it does put me in somewhat of a unique position where I can kind of combine these things in a new way, but that's still all very new to me. And like, we're going to have to feel it out and see how it goes. But Underscore has been very clear from the beginning. Like he understands that I have this journalistic commentator role and that's still my primary role, my primary job. And to have that needs its own independent voice. And, he's not going to get in the way of that, which I respect. But at the same time, right, I do also now work for a company that makes iOS apps and deals in the iOS app store and like has to contend with all those things. And so I do have to find those balances. And that's really why I wanted to let people know. So, when Widget Smith comes up or when underscore comes up as a topic, right, then I have that disclosure. But also when we talk about these things, that people know that this is an influence now that I have, because you're right. Everyone does have bias. No one is unbiased. Even people like who work as like capital J journalists, which I do not, right? Like I count myself as a commentator, but it's impossible to strain all of those out. So it's best in my mind just to be upfront about it and to be honest about it.
Yeah, I'm very excited and intrigued from the content perspective to see how your opinions adapt and to see what like the conversations will be. Like it's intriguing to me, like because I want to see where that goes. I also want to see where, like, we're, because of what we do for a living, we draw content from our experiences, right? We talk about the devices that we use. We talk about what we use them for. But you're about to change. Like, you're going to be using your devices for different things. Like, I know you've been running simulators and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's just not a thing that you do. And so, I also look forward to the point where the simulator means that you need to get a Mac Pro again or something, right? And you're going to be like, well, I wanted to have one laptop, one monitor, but now what am I supposed to do? Like, that's going to happen too. And I'm excited for all of that.
What's interesting is that also when developers, when eventually it comes for all of them, when eventually they get rejected by app review, to make a big fuss about it, most of them run to the press. And in this case, you just run to yourself.
He just runs to the mirror and he's like, "This is unacceptable,"
So that'll put you in an interesting spot and let's hope that it doesn't happen. But if it happens, you already have, the means to fight it in a different way. So that's an interesting position to be in.
It is. I actually had that thought the other day. It's like the "don't run to the press" line, which is like, there are a few things that Apple has said over the years that really sticks. That's one of them.
Yeah.
I think.
Did they officially say that? Like, was that like, I feel like I've lost the memory of it now.
Somebody find it. It used to
be
printed.
Was it in the
Oh yeah,
the NDA that you used to sign?
It was. I want to say that it was.
It was in like the iPhone NDA, like the iPhone OS NDA or something like that.
Somebody must have a diff version of. Wasn't it in the human interface guidelines at some point for the App Store? It was somewhere. I'm gonna find it.
Don't run to the press, except it's the only thing that ever does anything.
It's true.
But yeah, congratulations on being both the developer and the press.
OTJ, real-time feedback from OTJ, it's in the app review guidelines.
Still?
Looking for it.
Huh.
So we'll find it, and if anybody has a follow-up, please send it over.
But at least we know where it lives. There. Or has lived there. Don't run to the press, Stephen, but you should run to the press.
Let's talk about software updates. This week, we saw the release of iOS and iPadOS 17.3, watchOS 10.3, Sonoma 14.3. tvOS got an update as well, but there's no notes in here because Mike is retired as the tvOS guy. Fired. Federico, y'all had an overview of iOS and iPadOS 17.3 on the site. Can you talk us through some of the things that have been added or changed?
Yeah, so there's the new Black Unity wallpaper that Apple announced with the press release. Really cool looking wallpaper for your lock screen and more. There's finally the collaborative playlists in Apple Music. Now that feature finally shipped. Obviously something that Spotify has had for a few years. Was supposed to launch in 17.2. It appeared in the beta, then it was postponed again. Now it's here. So now you can share a playlist with someone else on Apple Music and you can collaborate on that playlist.
I saw somebody say, Federico, that with the introduction of this, that's everything now for iOS 17. Like, this was the last feature. Is that true to your knowledge?
I think that is correct. All the features that were pre-announced, that to-do list is finally complete, I believe.
Great.
So It's all to be gained from here until WWDC. We'll see. Maybe 17.4 will have something.
Well, the rumor is 17.4 will include the
side
mechanisms
loading.
for side loading.
Side loading, yeah.
Just
Nice.
a small
Nice.
thing. I look
Cannot
forward
wait.
to Stephen's takes on side loading
Yeah.
coming soon.
So yeah, we have a developer here.
Come on.
No.
Look, can I just pause you for a second there, Federico? Stephen,
Yeah.
what did you expect, right?
No,
Yes.
I know.
Okay, cool. I'm just checking. Like that, this isn't a surprise to you that we're going to give you a hard time
Oh, believe me, there's
You know?
lots more of this where it came from.
coming your way.
So this collaborative playlist, one feature worth noting here is that they have the proper emoji reactions that we all wanted
Ugh.
from iMessage. You have the emoji picker in music. So you can add any emoji you want. You can see the emoji that other people have added to the playlist. Really cool animation, really nice design. I like this feature a lot. And it's nice to be finally able to share a playlist and collaborate on a playlist with someone else or multiple people at once. And lastly, there's the stolen device protection, which is a feature that was launched in response to the Wall Street Journal investigation from last year. Essentially, a set of functionalities that will disable the ability to reset your Apple ID password and reset your phone just by using the passcode of the device. This is something that you can enable if you want to in settings, Face ID and passcode or Touch ID and passcode, depending on which iPhone model you have. And personally, it's something that I enabled right away in the first beta.
Okay, I wanted to know if the two of you had done it.
Oh yeah, big time.
Okay.
Yeah,
As soon as it was
immediately.
available. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've updated to 17.3 yet, but I will update.
I also did it for every phone in my household and sent the link to some friends and family of hey, you really should turn this on. The beauty of this feature, the way it's designed, is that it gets in the way very little of you doing actual things, right? Because you could just authenticate with Face ID or biometric or Touch ID. And if you're at home or some other significant location, which we'll talk about in a second, then you just do it again and you're fine. That's not a big hurdle, right? There's always a balance between security and ease of use. And I think they've done a pretty good job with that. It's not like, oh, I need to reset my Apple ID password. I got to jump through 5 hoops. You really don't. It's really designed for the situation where someone else has your phone and your PIN code. And so yeah, I think it's a no-brainer to turn this on. I understand why it's not on by default. It's maybe iOS 18, maybe they changed that. I think that now that it's here, because look, this is going to continue. There will still be stories about people who have their PIN code stolen and their phone stolen and have their Apple ID taken away, and that's horrific. It's catastrophic, really. But now that there's a feature that makes that much harder, those stories in a way will be worse for Apple. And so I think that this being on by default is good for everybody. I understand why it didn't just get flipped on in 0.3. But at some point, I've got to think that either it'll be a default or, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, maybe it's worthy of a badge in the settings app to tell people about it and tell them to turn it on.
You got to tell people, and I think that's a fine way to do it, right? That it will probably be a part of the new phone setup, maybe. And other than that, you've got to let people know. In case any listeners out there got lost about what this feature was, like I did. I definitely got lost and was very happy to read Nilian's article on Mac Stories. I will read from that article. Stolen device protection is an elegant solution to the problem of passcode theft. It disables the passcode fallback for all critical operations, including resetting your Apple ID password, because that's the thing you could do on your iPhone. If you forgot your Apple ID, you could put your passcode in to reset it. With it enabled, a password reset can only be performed using Face ID or Touch ID. Stolen device protection also adds a 1-hour security delay for several sensitive actions, like changing your device passcode or your Face ID and Touch ID settings. In practice, the security delay means you will have to authenticate with Face ID or Touch ID, wait for 1 hour, and then authenticate again to be able to make the changes. accessing your saved passwords and passkeys, applying for a new Apple Card, paying with Apple Pay, erasing and resetting your iPhone, disabling lost mode, and turning off stolen device protection itself are all actions that will be protected with stolen device protection on. So my one asterisk question is paying with Apple Pay. Like, I know I've hit in times where I've had to use my passcode for Apple Pay because it's not working.
Yeah.
And that's one where I'm like, ooh, I don't know about that.
What? I'm not sure I follow. What makes you uncertain about that?
That I wouldn't be able to use my passcode to pay with Apple Pay if Apple Pay Face ID is failing for me, which I have had. So I guess what? Do I just keep trying it? Is that what happens? Because I only see the passcode when it's not recognizing my face. So what happens? Does it just keep asking, show me your face? And is that what occurs? Because I figure if it does that, eventually it's going to get it right. But what is the fallback? Because passcode was the fallback for Apple Pay. So what is the fallback if it doesn't work?
It may be that you. So in times that I've had it fail, and I definitely have seen it as well. It's because Face ID had a false trigger. I picked my phone, had pulled my phone in my pocket and tried to unlock it accidentally, and it didn't see my face, so it won't unlock. At that point, maybe you have to stop, actually unlock your phone, swipe up, do the Face ID, and then use Apple Pay. It does add some friction there.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm okay with that, I guess, given all the benefits. But you're right, it is something to be aware of.
Yeah, I'm assuming that there's a way to deal with it. That's just my only thing of I don't know. And it's maybe that would make me want to turn it off. I don't know, but I am going to turn it on because you're right. It's all of the benefits that you get, especially some of the stuff that you've got to do. If I want to change my Apple ID password, I've got to wait for an hour for it. I think that's okay. But this stuff only happens. You only have to wait that hour if you're away from familiar locations. And we had Wiggs write in to say, is there a way to change them? And do you guys know about that? How do you define a significant location? How is such a thing defined? And then how could you maybe change it? Do we know?
I did a bunch of reading about this, and it seems like Apple is a little bit cagey about how this works. So you can go into settings, privacy and security, location services, system services, significant locations. And so I looked at mine, and it was my house, obviously, where I work and live. It was a coffee shop that I had a meeting at yesterday. I was there for a couple of hours. And then I had one of my kids' schools that I spent some time at the other day. So what it's doing is it's seeing where you are, and it's oh, they've spent a lot of time here. This is probably an important place. Also, though, in Apple's privacy policy, it says that your iPhone and iCloud connected devices keep track of the places you've recently been, as well as how often and when you visit them, in order to learn places that are significant to you. The data is end-to-end encrypted and cannot be read by Apple. So I don't have any problems with this being turned on for me because Apple's not going to see it. I don't care if my phone knows where I've been. But when you go in there, you can remove significant locations, but you can't tell it this address is a significant location. There's no, as far as I can tell, manual entry of a significant location.
Are they labeled in any way?
Let me see.
I don't think they are.
So I looked in 17.2, which isn't helpful, and I have a home and a work, and I don't know how they have been labeled. Maybe it's pulling it from my contact card or something, but then it also references 180 other locations, but they're not, at least in 17.2, not labeled. So I wonder if they changed that.
Yeah, mine says home, and then it says the name of the shopping center where that coffee shop is.
Mm-hmm.
I have 193 records, and I can clear my history. And it's, as far as I know, it clears all of them, and it syncs the clearing to your other iCloud devices. But yeah, there's not a way to tell it this is a significant place. It does say, at least in 17.3, that this is for providing useful location-related information in maps, calendars, photos, and more. And then again, it's end-to-end encrypted and cannot be read by Apple. So I would like some clarity, to Wick's point, around what these locations, can I define my own? Can I tell my device, actually, I don't want my work to be a significant location, because maybe I work in a place where my phone isn't on me and I would want the stolen device protection turned on, even though my work is a significant location. I think there needs to be a bit more control over this, but at least currently there's not. Mike, you're my significant location.
Thank you. So sweet.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Ecamm. Ecamm Live is the leading video production and live streaming studio built for the Mac. Ecamm does all aspects of video, not just live streaming. It's perfect for simplifying your video workflows. It's easy enough to get started quickly, but powerful enough that you can create just about anything with video, and you can do it all with the Ecamm app. What I am so impressed with about Ecamm is that it feels like a real Mac app. There are other video solutions on the Mac that don't feel that way, but Ecamm integrates really nicely with all the windowing in Mac OS. You can overlay things. So say that I have my regular desktop, but I don't want to show the whole thing, where I can tell Ecamm, this is what I want to show. I want this here. I want that there. It's all really easy to use. And whether you're streaming or recording, podcasting or presenting, everything's there in Ecamm, including support for multiple cameras, which makes everything look fancier, and really nice screen sharing. And the live camera switcher lets you direct the show in real time. Stand out from the crowd with high quality video. Add logos, titles, lower thirds, graphics, show your screen, drop in video clips, bring on interview guests, use a green screen, and so much more. Ecamm Live does it all. Their members are entrepreneurs, marketing professionals, podcasters, educators, musicians, church leaders, bloggers, and content creators of all kinds. Get 1 month free today by visiting ecamm.live and using the code CONNECTED. That's Ecamm, ECAMM, ecamm.live, and the code CONNECTED will get you a whole month for free. Go there now and check it out. Our thanks to Ecamm for their support of the show and Relay FM.
There's been a lot of conversation about the apps that are going to be available or not for the Vision Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Federico kicked off some of this by looking through some data,
Yes.
which appeared to be App Store information, or it was App Store information, that appears to show whether a developer is opting out or offering a Vision Pro app, or if it's going to be native. And you selected a bunch of like very popular apps in a selection of categories. And one of the main things that you found was that Spotify and YouTube, and they weren't going to be offering anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think this was part of what spurred on Mark Gurman to actually go to these companies and ask them, are you going to do this? And they told him no, which then started a lot of conversation about like what apps are going to be available on the Vision Pro, like what are actually going to be there, what iPad apps are going to be there, what Vision apps are going to be there. And it also echoes something that Apple was saying, because they had said YouTube and Netflix would be viewable in a browser, and so it kind of asks the question of, well, what about the browser? I guess. And then also David Pierce wrote a really nice article about just Safari and the web, and how that's probably going to be really important on the Vision Pro.
Yeah, so the idea being that some of the biggest services in the world, like Spotify, all of the Google apps, YouTube, obviously, they won't have native apps on the Vision Pro, but that's not, it doesn't paint a full picture, because it's one thing not to offer a native Vision OS app, and it's another thing to say, well, our iPad apps that can run, in theory, in compatibility mode by default, we are going to opt out of offering those iPad apps on the Vision Pro. So that's something that a developer needs to do manually. You need to go into App Store Connect and untick the checkbox where it says offer in compatibility mode, run in compatibility mode on Vision Pro. And so Google, Spotify, all these bigger companies have gone there and they have disabled the Netflix, obviously they have disabled the ability to install the iPad app on your Vision Pro. And obviously that sparked a conversation around, well, a common argument that I've heard from a bunch of people is, well, but do you want to use the Google apps, the Google iPad apps anyway? Isn't it better to use the Google services in a browser? Which to be fair, yeah, the iPad apps from Google are not good iPad apps. They usually use they use custom text views. They don't support none of the native like UI and interaction standards of iPadOS. They are always late to the party when it comes to implementing new iPad technologies. And yeah, it is better to use Google services in a browser. And so that made me think, but is it still like, even if we follow that argument to its logical conclusion, which is just use Google Docs or Google Sheets in Safari, is Safari for iPad typically a good experience for modern web apps? And I would say that still, despite Safari for iPad presenting itself as a desktop browser, it's been the case for a few years, I still find it to be kind of hit or miss. Like, most of the things, yeah, I can use Safari for iPad, but there is always something for me. Like in MailChimp, some things are always broken. Like sometimes scrolling doesn't work. Sometimes like things that are supposed to happen or appear on hover, sometimes they don't with the iPadOS pointer. Like there's always something that is kind of broken in Safari for iPad. And so if you come to me and you say, but TG, just use Safari on the Vision Pro and to use those services, my answer would be, is that going to be better than Safari for iPad? Because so far, like, it's not as excellent as Safari for Mac. And arguably Safari for Mac kind of lags in comparison to like Google Chrome, for example, when it comes to taking advantage of the latest web APIs. But still, Safari for Mac is a better experience than Safari for iPad. And so is Safari for Vision Pro going to be based on that? Or is it going to be a more full-fledged browser like on the Mac? And so far, the answer seems to be it's going to be an iPad browser, and it's not even going to offer you the ability to install those web apps to your Vision OS home screen because the button to add a web app to your home screen is not there. Now, is that button not there because it's just a matter of time constraints? The Safari for Vision OS developers at Apple didn't have enough time to add that functionality for Vision OS 1.0? Or is it a strategic omission in the sense that, well, if you just add that button there, it just creates an exit valve for Google and Spotify to say, well, we don't want to build native apps for Vision OS because you can just save our web app to the home screen. I don't know.
I am intrigued by how this is going to work. Like, we don't truly know what it's going to be like yet, right? And we don't know how the device will work with a lot of these services. I think for me, I've been paying attention to how I do work on my Mac. And I'm not talking about podcast recording here because I'm not expecting to be able to record podcasts on Vision Pro. It's like everything else. And outside of Safari, I use every day to get my work done Slack, Discord, Spark, Todoist, Timery, Notion, Fantastical, Messages, Notes, 1Password, and Reader. Now, I know a bunch of these apps are going to be there, like actually native. Like there is a large selection of these that will be in some way or another. But even the services where they might not be, a lot of them are accessible on the web as they use web technologies, right? Like even if Slack wasn't going to be on the Vision Pro, I could just use Slack in a web browser. And in some of these instances, the experiences of using these apps isn't that different than using like a Mac app and a web app, but that is on the Mac, right? As you say, Federico. And I don't know what it's going to be like to use it on Vision Pro, but I don't know. It feels like it's possible, but there are going to be weird edge cases. Like I could imagine a scenario, right? You go to YouTube and it's like download the app, but there isn't one.
Yeah.
Like you get those pop-ups that say, hey, just download the app from the App Store. It's like, well, you didn't do that. But it thinks you're coming from an iPad rather than a Vision Pro or whatever. And obviously there's been a lot of talk about this and I think interestingly, some discussion I think is overlapping pretty nicely with what we were talking about last week, right? About the 27% thing. And it's kind of like the idea of a lot of these large companies just noping out of this, it's not a surprise, right?
No.
Like This
No.
is a scenario that Apple has made for themselves. Like at the same time when they are asking developers to jump in on a very small unit, high effort platform, they're also continuing to erode relationships with companies of all sizes. Not in that like the terms are changing, but it's like, hey, we're reminding you of what we think of you. Like one of the things that we didn't talk about very much last week, but I've been hearing a lot about, and it's like a really like just an example of how they are treating this 27% thing, is the fact that the one link that you get to click has to have tracking information in it. And if a customer who used that link, if you can track that they signed up within 7 days, even if they left and come back, you still have to give them the money. Which, like, there are levels of the schadenfreude of this where it's like Apple wants you to track people on the web. And like, I thought Safari removed those tracking URL things anyway, but like maybe not for Apple's links, which I guarantee you is the case, right? And so it's like when you balance these two things together, it's like, no, like if you wanted Spotify and YouTube to have apps available, you needed to court them. And like you needed to make it something that they wanted to do. And I don't think they think like that, right? Like they're just like, oh, people will come. And maybe they will, right? Like if the Vision Pro is that good and like this is, over the years, it like builds and builds, people will want to develop for it. But there is a chicken and egg to this that we're going to see. Like maybe every single review, right, of the Vision Pro spends paragraphs or minutes talking about the fact that the experience of using third-party services is not good. That's going to turn people off.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you change it? Because if Apple isn't going to try and like get these large companies on side with them, then they're not going to bring their apps to the platform, which means people won't buy it. But Apple is hoping people will buy it to convince them. But like, where is the push and pull going to be there? Like, it's kind of fascinating to see all these things kind of like smashing together in real time.
Yeah, and I mean, in most cases, it's also like it is a transaction, right, between these companies. And if you're Spotify and you're looking at this, like you said, you're looking at this new platform, it's unproven territory, very expensive device that few, let's say hundreds of thousands of people are going to get a Vision Pro. If it becomes convenient for Spotify, like if the Spotify user base keeps asking them for a Vision Pro app because it's their favorite device, it's their new main computer, you can bet that Spotify is going to make a Vision Pro app. If it becomes necessary for them, if it's a business thing, like if our users are asking for that, then we're going to make it. At least that's how I would run my business. Even if you absolutely hate Apple, you're still a company and you got to respond to your users, right? So, and your customers in this case. Like, I have to believe that if the Vision Pro really hits critical mass at some point and it becomes ridiculous that Netflix and Spotify don't offer native or even just decent, barely passable Vision OS experiences, they will make those apps. Or maybe they will just start by flipping the switch on the iPad version in compatibility mode. But right now, all the leverage is in those companies' hands. They can say, well, you've been treating us badly. We don't know about this platform. We're not sure. So yeah, we'll skip it for now.
Yeah, I think that the boys over on Dithering, they had an episode, I think last week, called Apple Reaps What It Sows. It's perfectly said. I mean, there's no accident that these big media companies that have not committed to the Vision Pro yet are the same ones that have issue with Apple's other policies. And the thing that really stinks about all that is the customer that loses, right? Like the person who buys a Vision Pro and is stuck using Netflix and Safari or not being able to access all the features of Spotify or whatever it is. At the end of the day, they don't care about the debate between Apple and these other companies, they may not even know about it. I mean, right now on day one, they probably all do because day one Vision Pro buyers are going to be nerdy. But down the road, if this continues to be unsolved, it's the customers that ultimately are at the short end of the stick, and that's going to backfire because they're not going to know if it's Apple's fault or if it's Netflix's fault or whoever. And they may blame Apple, they may blame Netflix, they may blame both, but it's the customer who loses. And that's so against what everything Apple says that it believes about putting customer service and customer experience first. That's what gets me. It's like these companies are so hard-headed over these things that they're hurting the very people whose products who they make their products for. And that stinks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that does it for this week. If you want to find links to the stuff we spoke about, they're in your podcast player. They're also on the web at relay.fm/connected/486. While you're there, you become a member and get Connected Pro, which is a longer ad-free version of the show that we do each and every week. You can find us all online. Federico is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net. Lots of great coverage of Mac Stories. I can't wait for y'all to start getting into Vision OS apps in a couple of weeks. I assume you got big plans there.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Like, I'll just have the Mac Stories page open. I'll just keep refreshing to find out what I need to go download. Like,
Yeah.
that's just probably going to be what I'll do.
That is the plan.
Although, I do wonder, like, very quick, like, is it going to be possible to just look at all of the apps? Like what it was like when the iPhone came out? I think that might be possible, right?
I mean,
that,
judging by the numbers,
you might just be able to go to the App Store and just look at all of them, and you could just scroll through all of them. I'm genuinely excited about the possibility of doing that. We'll see how it goes.
The real irony would be to have a comeback of the I Am Rich app on a Vision Pro.
The Vision Pro kind of is the I Am Rich app.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
You can find Federico on Mastodon as Vitici and MacStories.net and on Threads as Vitici, Viticci. You can find Mike on a bunch of other shows here on Relay FM. That episode of Upgrade really is good, and it was so much fun being on it. Go check that out. There's a link in the show notes to that. You can also find Mike's product work over at Cortex Brand. You can find him on Mastodon as iMike and Mike.social, and you can follow him on Threads as iMike. You can find my writing at 512pixels.net, and I co-host Mac Power Users every Sunday here on Relay FM. You can find me on Mastodon as ISMH at eworld.social and ISMH86 on Threads. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for making the show possible: Notion, Squarespace, and Ecamm. Go check them out. Thank you to our members, and until next week, guys, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Bye, y'all.